it's connecting the terms of reference.
Oh, that's just a header. Yeah. That's what I asked you to do.
Yeah.
Live? Perfect. All right. Okay, let's move on to the action register. So if we move through the items, building stock inspection is going to be end of 2024 Treasury report aligned to the long-term plan. What's the progress on that?
So the Treasury report's attached to this agenda, and the team will come up and talk to that. And so we think that that action has been completed, but welcome your feedback.
The next item, internal audit program to avoid the consternation. We have received that, and that's
the first one, no, we haven't. It's not on this agenda, so that's not. So what's happening with that? The building stock inspection.
The progress date is the end of 2024. So it's probably someone can comment on.
It's just
that is the end of 2024, but if anyone that can comment on that.
Because this is obviously our last meeting for 2024. Yeah.
Is that still on track to be completed by the end of the year?
I think we'd have to take that off line. We were obviously not thinking about audit and risk being quarterly in terms of when that date was given, so I'd have to come back to you.
Health, safety and wellbeing, looking at initiatives to encourage EAP or similar services.
Madam Chair, both items I think are going to be touched on in the update to the health and safety report, which is coming up on the agenda.
And I think as is with the next one as well, the internal audit program, and I think the terms of reference does have this, good. So if we can update that action register.
Madam Chair.
Right, Shane.
That's all good. I presume that the internal audit program will confirming how they will identify any actual or perceived conflict after that, conflicts, and how they will be managed these going forward. It's just got actual or perceived.
Yeah, so that's part of that. The actual letter from Deloitte is included in the.
Yeah, they're just missing the word conflict. Yeah.
Oh, right. Noted. Yeah. Okay, noted.
Okay.
All right. Over to your report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. In terms of, this is just a quick high-level summary of the work that the team have been doing across the last 3 months since our last meeting. The report seeking your approval of the draft work program. This is updating the previous work program, but it's also taking the guidance from the chair in terms of getting more alignment to the terms of reference with our work, so that you can start to see your terms of reference actually being completed through the work of the staff. As the chair's already noted, we've also attached the memo from Deloitte regarding their provision of internal audit services and how they've assessed the conflict of interest. Just a couple of points. There is a section in there that talks to the progress we've made on the internal audit. The work, we were hoping to bring back a completed report to this meeting. Unfortunately, we've got a draft report and it's not quite ready to go, so we'll be bringing an update back to the February meeting, but we are certainly looking at some of the recommendations already and working on those, so we'll bring back the final report next year. There's nothing significant out of the initial findings that cause us any great deal of alarm, but there is work that we need to do, but we'll bring back that completed report. I just want to touch on to another significant piece of work towards achieving the committee's terms around health, safety and wellbeing is the completement of our maturity assessment. That's a fairly big report, and we've got one of the reviewers coming to talk to that report shortly. I do want to pay and acknowledge the staff who've helped coordinate this, and so Maria, Tracy and Wayne, who will probably be sitting outside with Phil at the moment. The amount of work that's gone on to coordinating on-site visits, visits to all of our facilities, visits with contractors, and also interviews with our senior leadership team and also governors. Just want to say thank you very much for the work you put into that. So kia ora team. And a couple of other key points that we've finished the first delegations review, which has reset staff's financial delegations, and this has been a really big piece of work. Again, this is a really important control for the organisation to make sure that what we spend is being approved by the right people at the right level for the right amount. And my last point is I just want to welcome to the team our new head of legal and risk, Julie Hands, who's down in the corner. Julie's joined the team, been here about 6 weeks now, hit the ground running and is making a difference already. And so I know that Julie and Sonia will be up talking to you about risk and Laboima and all sorts of fun stuff later on in the meeting.
Questions, comments? Oh,
I'll kind of do it in reverse order. Oh no, first of all, well done on the completion of the health, safety and welfare assessment. That's fantastic to see it in that space. I want to look at the work plan here that you've done here, and I just want to make sure I've got my head in the right space. Incorporated in there is a regular deep dive into particular things. Yep, great. And is it this committee's place to approve that, or is it just a recommendation to full council to approve it? That's my
the work plan?
Yeah.
It's our work plan, so for us to approve.
And the last one is the Deloitte's. This is a question. I've not. My comfort level is probably less after receiving the letter than it was before, because when they openly acknowledge things like if they're asked to mark their own homework in terms of CORD, I wonder whether some of their risk mitigation things are realistic, and I want us to think carefully before we sign off on that.
I'll put my 5 cents worth on that. So I reached out to CORD and Deloitte and asked them to write that letter. I guess there's two options. You know, this comes up all the time with professional services firms wanting to do all work and every work. And so the first option was to say that we wanted completely separate firms, so that we were not comfortable with Deloitte being both the internal audit partner for CORD and for Selwyn. The other option, which I was comfortable with, was that you actually have a completely separate team and a separate partner. Now, what they could have done is they could have said, oh, we'll just have a separate partner, but then you have the same members of the team operating in both companies. But they have taken that extra step and said it's a completely separate partner and it's a completely separate team, and all the IP and all the information will be locked away in Teams files that no other team will have access to. So that's as good as it will get. So I guess our comfort level has to be around that, that's the level of management that they have put in place. I got to a point where I was comfortable with that, but obviously it needs to be an audit and risk committee view on that. So what do others think? Oh,
It's exactly the same thing as what I've flagged, is that, okay, within their system, they've got ways of stopping other people being able to see things. But the last thing, the same thing that Phil brought up, how is that flagged in their system? Because we're talking about then when you've potentially got changes of staff and stuff like that, is Because from where I sit, the other things are quite easily like they can be set up in a system, but how does that last one get set up if you've got like the likes of change of staff, you know, people that have moved out on and different people coming in, to have that one actually dealt with through their system?
So all our material, all of CORD's material, like whether it's documents or policies or their meeting minutes, etc., they'll be in a separate section within Teams. I'm assuming that's what they're using. So only the team members that have been assigned to the engagement of Selwyn or assigned to the engagement of CORD will have access to any of that material.
I understand that, but this is where we actually, like then talking about doing new work and then having a process of then having to approach and talk about with Selwyn or whatever. I'm just trying to see that it is that they have crossed the T, because I'm not comfortable about this last bit as well, the same way that Phil has said.
So what's the risk, I guess, Phil and Nicole, what's the risk that you're actually concerned with?
I guess it is, well, okay, good question, but let me just flesh out the reason for the risk from the letter first. The worth of this says I will not be engaging as a partner in the internal work, but for CORD, my role will be limited to lead client service partner for CORD. So this person is saying, as a partner, I will still be involved in CORD. And as Deloitte's, as a person working for Deloitte's, their business is their business, and it is their business.
Yeah.
And I guess what that's if they're going to make their own homework because of an internal thing that we have and we want to do something that is contrary to the interest of the CCO, then they are then in a position where they are going to know our internal our reasoning why, and give the opportunity for the CCO to shape themselves. Now we probably have the conversation with the CCO anyway, because if we're in that space, we'd be having the conversation. But that's our business.
Yeah,
and it's and we need to keep that in our business, and it's having this third party. Look, and the other part of this, the I-manage system. I'm sure it's a great system, but if I print something out, that can go anywhere, and then it's not captured by the I-manage system. And it's when one company is doing these dual audits, then there's always there's a real risk of cross-pollination. So
I did pick up on that as well, that still has that service level partner, and as Bruce will know, what that normally refers to as they do a check or a quality check on a conversation on how's the engagement actually going. Year on year, they might do an interview. Now, so we could take an extra step and say, no, we don't want you to have anything to do with CORD whatsoever. So take that role away. It is the other thing to note, it is two different offices. So I guess they're leaving a piece of paper by the photocopier if they were to print something out. I think the CORD team is going to be a Auckland team or a Wellington team. But again, it's and going back, it's an unfortunate thing that and I'm not sure of the root cause of how this happened, but in the RFP process, it didn't get it picked up. I only found out about it subsequent to that. Once the tender had actually already been happening, I think the conversations did occur, but it didn't. Unfortunately, it just didn't. It was one of those things that didn't happen to come through audit and risk until the RFP had gone out and they'd evaluated and decided that Deloitte would be the best fit to deliver those services. But I think it was discussed. It just didn't come through audit and risk. So. Yeah, I guess we've got a decision to make, and I'm interested to hear from others as well.
Let's not accidentally make the decision. Let's make it, if we're going to do it, it's a decision we're making with our eyes open, and that's, I guess that's what I'm asking is that we're aware of all the risks that this incorporates, and that it probably becomes part of our risk management policy around our own internal auditor.
Others, Shane, did you have a view on this?
Thank you very much for the report and the team for their outstanding work. I really do appreciate that this shows a definite maturity, and although I haven't attended many of these meetings, I appreciate the evolution of where we are. So I do appreciate the work, Steve and team, and welcome Julie to the team. The point to approve the draft work plan, just in the first column, November 24. Sorry, on page, I've lost it now, sorry.
Sorry, can I just so we can finish one item before moving to the next, can I just get your view on the Deloitte being the internal audit? Can we just close that off and then move to the work plan?
Okay. Point 3 to the report, which is that one that I was just working my way through the report. So I'm happy to approve the draft report, but I just wanted clarity on that November 24 schedule at the bottom where the Audit New Zealand report, and then below that, because it's just logged out now, point 4 is around management, letters from management. Will that audit report be accompanied by letters from management? So we've correct.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
So we'll just update that.
Point 3, I can certainly see where the concern comes from. If we've identified that there's a potential conflict, and then I can see the uneasiness around running client. However, I think that a operator such as Deloitte is in the same position as any other lawyers where they have, or firms where they have multiple clients that they look after, but they have the internal processes to mitigate the risk. So I'm happy and fairly comfortable with the position that we're taking. However, the letter, the accompanying report with it that says I won't accept any risk, it's kind of vague, and I presume that the clarity will come through that draft report, which is you've said that it'll be coming through in February. So a lot more clarity will come then. So I'm comfortable with the direction to support it, so we get that level of clarity when it comes through in February.
Thanks, Chair. I take a slightly different view on this one, having been in the industry. If this was an external auditor, I would have some concerns. Internal auditors, if you want to line auditors up and say what do they look like, then external auditors wear black hats, and they tend to be quite adversarial, and their job is to actually be reasonably cynical about what we're doing to try and find what they're. But internal auditors are there for our benefit. And yes, there is an element of audit, but they are there for the improvement of the organisation. So I'm reasonably comfortable with Deloitte. In fact, I could see some advantage in having the same internal auditor. Where things could probably get a little bit sticky for them is in the event that they end up in the procurement cycle, or there's a procurement conversation about how something was bought by the Selwyn District Council and they were tendering for it. So we do need to be very careful in relation to how we allocate that particular piece of work from ourselves. And that you could necessarily, if you wanted to, step outside and have that done otherwise. But that's about the only place I can see a risk. When they talk about auditing their homework, they're actually not talking about the two internal auditors auditing each other. They're actually talking about the possibility of Deloitte providing us with a piece of advisory work, tax advisory or IT advisory or something like that, improvement advisory, which is then, so we want to be pretty careful then, Sharon, about who you appoint to do those sorts of work, because your internal auditor and your external auditor really are precluded at that point from doing anything like that for you. So you can't ask them, for example, to overview the tax advice or something like that. So not that we'd have a lot but that's where it does become difficult. So, and I would suggest that's where your risk is likely to fall, is because that's where the risk is created for them. So I think I'm really comfortable. And when they say they do have separate teams and separate offices, they mean it. They truly mean it, right? They won't be. This is not lip service. So they won't get access, and the conversations will start and finish at that area. So I'm pretty well. The Lord behave the same way as the firms I've been at, and there's no way that they would let that impact on their integrity. So I'm pretty comfortable, and I'm pretty comfortable with the auditor as well. So that gives you a little bit more comfort. That would be where I see it falling. I'm quite comfortable with the response I've been given and the way in which they're managing it. Okay.
So to get you and Nicole a little bit more comfortable with this, we could go back to Deloitte and request that the internal audit partner that has been appointed to Selwyn is to have nothing to do with court. Which will just give us that little bit. Like, I think he's got service quality partner, but we actually want that removed, and you and your team are to have nothing to do with court. And we can also ask for when you appoint around turnover of team and staff, is that you can even get them to do a quarterly, positive attestation statement that says I or none of the team have had anything to do with, just to keep them remembering that, every 6 months they have to write that statement.
Well, I'm just more like, where is it flagged in their system where it can come up and that they can see it? Because we're in the position that is the moment, we're in an interesting position to start with, because there's been, that's not really been flagged by the looks of it, if you understand what I mean, to have, them both going for the same.
Yeah, I think it was raised during the RFP from Deloitte, but it just didn't unfortunately make it to us. So I think that was on our side, not on their side.
And to be fair, they'll have a number of these, because in internal audit they will. It's not, they would have seen it as a potential, but not as a real. And I would have seen it that way as well. Certainly they wouldn't have even bothered if it had been external audit.
I understand that, but I just want to ask the questions because I'm sitting as someone on this committee. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Nicole.
I think I like your idea of having asking them to have a litmus test, a regular litmus test, to just make sure that there is no cross pollination.
Well, I think as a part of their delivery of their internal audit reports, which when we get the timeline corrected, they will come every quarter to present their report. So we can ask the question every quarter if we want to.
If I may, Madam Chair, I guess that was probably the point I was going to note, is that each of these reports are going to be produced and then made publicly available. And what we can do following this conversation is seek an extra level of assurance through the methodology that they confirm the team members, so that there is a written track record of who have been involved. Noting your interest in this and making sure that we are managing this effectively, and just publicly stating it in the report that you receive. And it's done on a quarterly basis, so that will keep it live.
Are there any other questions or comments to any of the other items within Steve's report?
No, but I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Yes, the only comment on me was a thank you to management really to getting that work program. It's great practice. Not everyone does it. They just have a terms of reference and then